Well, I want to talk about some of the suffering you detail in your book, but before I do, I kind of want to jump to a of an ethical punchline question because all of this has to do with the cash value of the ethical cash value of everything we're going to talk about comes down to questions of suffering and whether the lives of certain animals are net negative based on how we raise them and how we treat them and how we kill them. But what if, and I think, and we'll get into some of the details, but I don't think many readers of your book would be tempted to defend most of the details you describe in your book around the use of animals in experiments and their treatment when raised for food on factory farms. I mean, the details really are appalling. But what about the more enlightened or most enlightened, smaller,
happy farms, happy holocausts, let's go,
or organic farms that may or may not yet exist? I mean, just the ideal condition of pasture-raised cows or chickens, say, if we agreed that animals raised under those conditions, albeit raised for food and eventually killed, live net positive lives, right? Which is to say, it would be better to have been such an animal than to have not been at all, right? It's certainly better than to have been a wild animal that lives its entire life fleeing predators. And
just got to say, I don't like that whole bringing up wild animals as if these animals are brought from the wild to these happy farms, because that's not what happens.
To save them from the cruelties of nature, kind of like pushing the narrative. Yeah, that's some bullshit.
Yeah, I don't think Sam sincerely believes that the animals that we breed came from nature, but to say that, it kind of seems like he could have that belief where like it makes the case for just killing these quote net positive cows sound or feel better. But like, just to be clear to anyone listening, the animals that we consume in animal agriculture, they're all bred. We don't take them from like nature, like a terrible condition, and then say, let's put them on this happy farm, and then we kill them when it's time to eat them, and they were better off there than in the wild. They were never in the wild. They were just bred. Okay? Just got to be clear about that.
It's certainly quite unlike what is happening on our industrial scale factory farms. If such idyllic or organic farms exist, then
why do they have to be organic?
Yeah, it's like
it's got nothing to do with the welfare aspect.
In terms of like organic, in terms of meat, what does that mean? Because I kind of understand what it means in plants.
He's just taking organic to be a necessary component of these happy farms, when like organic has nothing to do with like the ethics of these cows or whatever. Someone said no hormones or something like that.
Organic, I think, it's just one of those buzzwords that doesn't really have. If you investigate it, I don't think there's like really much difference.
Yeah, it just sounds nice.
Yeah.
Are currently advertised to exist. Would eating those animals be not only ethically permissible, but better than shunning all animal agriculture?
I think that's a very good question. And
yeah, just remember, before Peter answers, he's considered the father of animal rights. Okay.
Yeah.
Quite a difficult question. I accept that there are.
It says it's a difficult question to answer. Is it better to have these net positive cow farms where we kill animals prematurely for flesh, or just don't do that and just grow plants instead or something and abolish animal agriculture? It's a hard question to answer for this animal ethicist, animal rights movement father. Yeah, that's a really tough one. Should we violate animals' rights and murder them because they had net positive lives and it was better for them to have existed than to not, from a like well-being perspective? Or should we just like not do that?
This is somewhat of a difficult question to answer.
Yeah, because I'm sure with humans we'd be cool with that. I'm pretty sure he did concede to that in his conversation with Cosmic Skeptic when it was brought to him in the human scenario, but I'll put that on the screen now for you guys watching later, because I'm going to post this as a video probably. But
so to be clear, in the situation I described of raising isolated human beings until they're 18 and then killing them secretly, the thing that's wrong about that, in your view, is just the fact that there's a risk that this might cause other human beings to be scared that somehow they're going to get caught up in it. I mean, I can imagine very strict laws in place that unless you were born a member of this particular set of human beings who are bred in particular to be kept isolated and to be bred for food, perhaps for just the sake of our taste pleasure, unless you're a member of that group, you're not allowed to be touched by anybody. You can imagine the laws are incredibly strict on this. And you could say, sure, well, there's a sense in which people might think there's a disrespect for human lives that may one day eventually evolve into a problem for us. But you could say the same thing about animal consumption. You could say, if we're going to begin to recognize a speciesism in the way that we think, and we're kind of okay with killing animals, then shouldn't we be terrified that one day we'll be okay with killing humans too? And we think no, because we've put very strict boundaries around this, not just morally, but also legally, that sure, you can kill a pig, but you can't kill a human being. In this situation where I'm killing human beings early-ish in their lives, say 18 years old, none of the humans who are going to be killed find out. All of the humans who do know about this practice know that they're never going to be a member of that group of people. Is the only thing that could be wrong with that, in your view, just the small risk that sort of something might go wrong there and people might be scared? Is there not something wrong with the killing?
I mean, you also have to say, of course, that these humans would not have existed at all. There's no way in which they would have come into existence, except that they were going to be killed at 18 for some reason.
Yes, to the same extent that an animal on a humane farm, as you describe it, might not have existed unless it was going to be killed for food.
Yeah, I see. I mean, I think you're describing a situation that is hypothetical to test our intuitions, which is perfectly fine. I don't think that there could be a real world analog of this. But if you say, let's ask that question hypothetically under these circumstances, then I agree. It's very hard for a utilitarian to say why this is wrong, given that these 18-year-olds have good lives that they would not have had otherwise, and we have to assume, of course, that nobody else is harmed by this. So that's another hypothetical thing that we haven't really touched on. Presumably, they have mothers anyway, who might care for them and don't want to be separated from them and want to know what happens. You could say, okay, well, let's assume we've developed we've developed gestation, in a serum or something like that. So they actually have no mothers. We've produced the eggs and the sperm and put them together, and then we grow them in that way. So if you do all that, then it's difficult for me to say this is intrinsically wrong.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure even in the human case he was cool with it, and that's just because he's like a purely utilitarian type of person. So
a small number of farms that do treat animals well, that give them good lives, in the end they kill them, but especially if they can kill them on the farm, which in the United States is only possible for small animals like chickens and ducks and rabbits, because otherwise you're not really allowed to kill them on the farm. You have to take them to a slaughterhouse. But if they have good lives and they die without suffering, I think there is a case for saying that we are not harming them by purchasing those products.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We're not harming them. Yeah, when you kill something, it doesn't harm it, right? Now, This could just be a whole, semantic thing.
Yeah.
But typically, I think most people's conception of harm is going to include ending someone's life, right? Just call me crazy, but I think if you painlessly kill somebody in their sleep, I still think you did harm to them. But that's my conception of harm. I don't know about you, Mr. Singer.
Yeah, it seems he might just take it as some as suffering. So under the assumption that you painlessly do it, there's no harm.
Yeah, but then it's it doesn't add much to it. It's like saying if we replace harm with without suffering, then it just sounds like this. Without suffering, I killed this thing, and I think we could say that we didn't cause suffering. It's
yeah, right.
Well, duh, that's how you defined it, right? So it's just an empty statement, right?
Yeah.
Because on balance, their life was a good thing, and if nobody purchased those products, then clearly they would not have existed at all. Now that gets you into this quite difficult philosophical argument that was first raised by the Oxford philosopher Derek Parfit in his book Reasons and Persons, about whether bringing more beings into existence if they're going to lead good lives, is actually a good thing. And of course, here there's also the question, does it in some way compensate for depriving an existing being of their life? But, I'm prepared to say that the answer to that question may be yes, it is a good thing to bring beings into existence if they're going to live good lives. And if the only way to do that is to, at some point in their life, kill them without suffering and sell their products, that might still be overall something that you can defend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I'm gonna start raising a family and give them all good lives, and then I'm just gonna kill them so I can sell their products. And it'd be better for them to have lived than to not. And I'll make sure there's no like extrinsic value thing going on, so like no one knows about it or cares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm gonna do is I'm also gonna raise a family, and then I'm just gonna kill them, painlessly in their sleep, and then
So
I'm gonna make.
There's no harm, right?
There's no harm. Yeah, there's no harm in it. And then I'm gonna turn their bodies into sex dolls, and I'm just gonna sell that off, right? And it's gonna give other people pleasure,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I don't think I harmed them in that process. I don't think I'm doing anything wrong in that process.
I think it's a hard question. It's hard to answer whether what you just said is immoral or not.
It's kind of hard, yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you really think about it, it's like people are deriving pleasure. I'm also giving a good life to the family. I mean, like you do have to kill them, but hey, I mean, it's without pain, so it's like, is it really bad?
Yeah, who cares about killing others? As long as there's like a net increase in well-being. I was going to ask you, like, so on a serious note, this is what I mentioned to you earlier. Can't someone say, like, from a utilitarian perspective, I know, like, the incentive for them coming to existence is the fact that you're going to kill them for their meat later. But I was going to ask, like, from a utilitarian perspective, wouldn't it be better to let them continue to live so there's more like well-being generation throughout their entire life that they have to live? Like some have argued that it's actually like against a utilitarian views to kill them
until they live the extent of like the positive utility, they exhaust it, and then you kill them. Yeah, so it depends, because like there's going to be a lot of factors that you have to account for, because let's say you kill them prematurely, right? But like you killing them leaves space for another being that's capable of having like a positive utility. Like how do you quantify that in your calculus?
Right.
You see what I mean? So it's like, I'm not sure. It's just, I think that's just going to depend upon the utilitarians' sort of principles. Like if they have one where it's like, you should fully exhaust the positive utility of a given being in question, then yeah, it's going to be wrong to prematurely kill them. But if they only care about like how much well-being is, this would be a crazy view, but if they only care about like how much well-being is present at the planet, on the planet, regardless of like the extent of their lives or something like that, just like how much well-being, if we could quantify it, we just aggregate all the well-being, how much is there at a time, then it wouldn't matter if they like killed it prematurely. But that view is crazy though, because they would see no issue with, like, let's say if something was born and they experience like a high degree of well-being the moment that they're born, and then they just kill it, and then they just replace it with another being that has a high degree of well-being when it's born, and they could just keep doing the ad infinitum. And so at any point during that process, there's always going to be a high degree of well-being, even though like you're systematically killing beings, right? So just going to depend upon like what are the principles of the view, I guess you can say.
Right.
Hopefully I wasn't too convoluted, but
no, I followed that. And I mean, also, wouldn't you, like, if the idea was like well-being maximization, because I know they're just saying like, oh, it's better for them to have existed than to not, or something. It's better than non-existence. But if in the interest of like utility generation, like wouldn't it still make more sense to just advocate for breeding cows that we don't end up killing to consume, but they just
so that there's more well-being?
They have a good life, and we maximize the utility that you can get out of them, and then they just die of like natural causes or whatever. Like, wouldn't that be more toward a view of like, let's maximize utility? Like, why do we have to add this whole part where we kill them and cut off like 3/4 of their life so somebody can consume a burger?
I assume the utilitarian is also going to factor in the utility that humans get from consuming animals into their calculus. However, it doesn't mean, I do see what you're saying, it doesn't mean that they have to stop at like bringing animals into existence for the sake of humans. They could just bring animals to existence, give them good lives, and that, like, and that's going to be more conducive to maximizing utility.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, I can definitely see that being the case.
Yeah, like if you had two choices and like the one where you don't kill them but they live like another 15 years as opposed to lose 15 years, all that utility generated from like their existence, all their needs are met, they're just in a field playing with other cows, it's great, playing with humans, whatever, would be preferable to what, like somebody just eating a burger? Like how much utility do you gain out of like
I see what you're saying. I think the
Yeah.
utilitarian would mostly prefer if everyone, it just, again, it just depends on the utilitarian, but like I'm coming
Yeah.
up with a utilitarian position right now. So
Mhm.
it's like there's enough animals, to sort of like feed the human population so that the humans can get positive utility.
Mhm.
The humans have positive utility. Sorry, the animals have positive utility because they're given a good life. And
Mhm.
then I would say, even more than that, is like they should be making even more animals on top of that if they just care about well-being simplicator, right? Like they would think it's a good thing, even if we're not going to consume those animals, just have them exist and give them a good life, because like that's what a utilitarian would desire. It's just like more well-being.
Mhm.
So that would be like another option. That would probably be like the best for them, I guess, in this case.
Right.
Yeah. So
So
you can have like your just to
Yeah.
respec, like you could just have your group of animals that are going to be slaughtered that have a good life, and then you just another group of animals that just exist because you just want there to be positive utility. Yeah, and I think a utilitarian would find that to be ideal,
Mm-hmm.
or could find that to be ideal.
Yeah, and if someone was interested in maximizing utility, I feel like they would want probably both those groups to just not be killed and just live out as much of their life as possible to generate as much utility as possible. I think.
Depends. It depends because it depends on how they quantify
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Right.
utility that
Yeah.
humans get from consuming that. Yeah, because they could just depending on how they hash that out, like how they specify that quantity, it could just be the case that the the pleasure that humans get from consuming the animals is like it's a lot higher than like the pleasure that the animals experience throughout their life.
Gotcha. And if we could do the same thing with like say mentally handicapped human farms that tasted
Yeah,
better, they tasted better than cows on average.
yeah,
Then the
yeah,
utilitarian would be cool with the happy holocaust of mentally disabled humans that taste better than cows. It'd be more preferable,
yeah.
probably. Yeah.
It seems like they would have to be committed to that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds really nice. Yeah.
to that extent, although so I call myself a flexible vegan. I'm always vegetarian, and I'm vegan when I'm shopping and buying for myself. But it's not always
Flexible
easy
vegan.
to
He could
stick
just put his legs behind his head.
Right. Very flexible.
to that when traveling or moving around.
Yeah, so he's the father of animal rights, but when he's traveling or moving around and it's a little difficult, animals don't have rights. And he said he's vegetarian always, but when he's shopping, he's vegan.
Oh, damn. I'm moving from one place to another. Better kill some animals.
Right.
You just hate it when that
Amazing.
happens.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm traveling. It's a little bit hard. They only have chocolate chip Cliff Bars here. I guess I'll just have to get the burger.
So
Darn.
although that's my preferred way of eating, I don't really reject people they're sometimes called conscientious omnivores who really search out these small places where they can be confident that the animals have had good lives. And I think it's difficult to find because you can't always believe the labels. I think you really need to visit the farm and talk to the people who run it and make your own judgment about how genuine they are in terms of what they're doing for animals. But I'm not going to deny that some of them do exist. So, many of my fellow animal rights activists would say, no, that's still a violation of the animal's rights. You're still using it as a means to your end. But as I say, to me, that's a difficult argument to make. And I'm so
It's a difficult argument to make that you're violating an
It is.
animal's rights when you murder them when they have like 3/4 of their life to live still.
It's one of the hardest ones to make, honestly.
It's a super hard argument to make. I don't know how I could ever make it, especially in the case of humans. It'd be really hard to argue against a happy human farm that literally raises humans happily only to like murder them when they like want, they have all these other years to live and experience well-being and stuff. Yeah, totally. So hard.
Dude, Fuck off. I don't want anything to do with you. Don't ever speak to me again. You're a fucking piece of shit.
Even vegans don't get your weird, stupid wannabe sense of irony here. Who is your audience? Nobody gets these dumb jokes. Dude,